Welcome, everyone. Today, we're discussing the art of face assessment and diagnosis. Remember that in Ayurveda, we primarily use our five senses to understand the health and wellness of a person. And Ayurveda was developed before a lot of modern medical equipment. So, practitioners in ancient times had to assess people with what they could see, hear, smell, touch and palpation, and that was their main tools. And so the practitioners got good at this skill, right? It was a highly developed skill, and that's what they mostly relied on. And so so they had to sort of fine tune that process, and that gives us a lot of information today for health and wellness professionals, as well as everybody else, as well as the users and people who want to help themselves feel better at home, to use some of those skills and knowledge that was developed over the ages to assess their health in a very simple and direct way that makes wellness more accessible at home. So the subject of today's talk is specifically on face assessment and diagnosis, and we're going to go through hair, eyes, features of the face, bones, all that kind of stuff in the face, so that we can understand body type and other potential imbalances that a person might be experiencing. And I think that's an exciting topic. People love to be able to see one another, right? Learning to see a person's face and understand them a little bit deeper is, I think, something that is very humanistic, something we're all interested in, and so it's an exciting topic to share with everybody, and I'm excited to give it. So, without further ado, this is what I look like. My name is John Immel. I'm the director of the Joyful Belly School of Ayurveda, and this course is sponsored by the Fundamentals of Ayurvedic Medicine course, which is a 2-year program that's entirely online, no travel required. I know there's people calling in from all around the world to hear today's presentation, and our school is an online school. So this today's class is on some level very similar to what you might expect in our online courses, and with the exception that we go into more depth in the online course. It's a 2-year program rather than an hour presentation. So also, you may have noticed on the website and in our newsletter that we are running a promotion for people who attend this call to get a $750 discount on new registrations that you can claim within the next 3 days of attending this call. Also, we have another certification course at Joyful Belly called Mastering Ayurveda Digestion and Nutrition. And that's for people who want to particularly specialize in digestion and Ayurvedic nutrition. And that's a 1-year course. So check those out if you haven't already. They are both very in-depth programs where you will learn a lot, and very, very exciting, life-changing for most of our students. So if you are interested in that, reach out. I'm happy to talk to any student and a prospect about their interest in the school. And I'll even put in the chat box right here my email. You can reach out to me, or my cell phone. So just text me if you have any questions about the course. I know that um, people who are enrolling in a course like that might have some questions naturally, and it's a big decision. So I can help everyone make that decision. I think that it only went to the people in the waiting room. My message. Hold on, let me see if I can get it to go to everyone. Sorry for the clicking noise. I see one person's mentioning the clicking noise, and that is just because I am using my keyboard, and I will try to tap a little bit more quietly. All right, great. So we've heard from two students a little bit about our courses. Let's get into the face assessment. First of all, why learn face analysis? Visual examination is one of the three main methods of Ayurvedic assessment, along with palpation and questioning. And the first thing you notice when you meet someone is their face. What can you learn from facial analysis? You can learn their body type and also their imbalances. And I don't just rely when I'm meeting with a client on something I see on a client's face, but I also look at other signs and symptoms throughout their body to confirm what I might learn from the face. And that's true for all of Ayurveda's diagnostic tools, is that I will look and notice something in one area of the body and try to confirm it in other areas as well. So a face tells a story. I mean, we all know this, that your emotions as well as your health history are sort of written on your face. You can kind of see if a person's a happy person, they might have wrinkles around their smile or other things. We're used to reading people's faces, and Ayurveda goes into much greater depth than is typical in this area, and that I think is why everyone is here today. So a few things about assessment before we get into particulars is that people can sometimes do things to change what their face looks like. And that can make it a little bit more difficult to assess somebody's face. And here are some examples of that. If a person has plastic surgery, for example, that could make their face look like they have one constitution, even though they're a different constitution. Or a person could put on fake eyelashes that could throw you off, or sculpt their eyebrows, or get Botox injections. Wearing makeup can obscure your assessment. And so can using lotions to moisturize and other things. So always be on the lookout for what the client might be doing to alter their face when you are doing an assessment. All right. Other things that might affect a person's face. The temperature outside. A person's face looks different in June than it does in January. In January, a person's face is going to be more pale. In June, a little bit more red in the face. So I have to account for that when I'm doing an assessment. So season, whether a person's sunburned or not, whether they had a good night's sleep last night, their stress level, whether they've eaten recently, all that can affect the skin, the eyes, and other features on a person's face. It's not going to change the size of their ear, but it will change quality of skin. Another thing I'm going to mention as we get into this is that some of the observations that I'm giving are from the ancient texts. Some are confirmed through scientific research, and others are speculative based on my clinical experience and application of Ayurvedic principles. And wherever I am speculating based on my own clinical experience, I will put these two letters, SP, on the slides, which is just a short way of saying this is speculation, a speculation that I'm giving based on my experience. All right, great. Let's talk about face shape and what that says about constitution. Vata, okay, in Ayurveda, there are three body types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And here we're talking about Vata faces. And the three body types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, are, I'll give you just a brief intro to them. Vata tends towards deficiency. So they tend to be long and lean, and they tend towards deficiency and dryness. Pitta people generally have a lot of heat, and Kapha people tend towards excess and congestion. So if a person has a constitution that's a little more stocky, that's more like Kapha. And if a person has a Vata constitution, it's more thin. Their person is more deficient and thin. Okay? So the shape of a Vata face tends to be thin and long. You can see the bones of a Vata face more than you can on a Kapha face because Kapha people have thick skin and Vata people have thin skin. Vata faces can sometimes be asymmetrical because Vata has a lot of irregularity. For Pitta faces, you'll see sometimes a heart shape to the face, which means the forehead is wider than the chin. Pitta people tend to be hot-headed, and there's lots of hot blood moving upward that fuels the brain, and they tend to have a big brain. Pitta people tend to be very analytical, maybe you're intellectual, and also sometimes a bit irritable. So what I notice, and you'll notice again those initials SP. This is what I notice in my clinic is that in Pitta individuals, the upper as you go higher in the body, you see more and more heat signs, and that's just a generalization, not always true. Uh, Pitta people can also have a rectangular face. So there's a heart-shaped face. Here's a rectangular face. Arnold Schwarzenegger here, finely chiseled. He has a finely chiseled face, but it's not due to deficiency. When we looked at this Vata face, you see the bones are visible, as with this one. But in Arnold Schwarzenegger's case, there's no deficiency. There's no leanness. He's not lean. He's stocky and good thick bone structure, and that's what you're seeing. He has good musculature as well in the cheeks. You can see that, and in the neck. Look at his neck, how thick that is. All right, now for a Kapha face, you're generally going to see a rounder face. Kapha people can nourish themselves very well, so they have good absorption, and they generally have a heartier, beefer, larger physique throughout their body. And here you see that the thick skin has created padding over the bones, so you really just can't see the bones as much as when you're looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look at that jawline here, and even the forehead. You can see the bones in his forehead. You can't do that for this person because of the thickness of their skin. Kapha face is sometimes compared to a moon face. That it's a little bit more pale, but not deficient. Vata people can have a pale face too, but you don't see any deficiency here in this client, in this person. All right, great. Kapha people can have a triangle or pear face, and here you see that the chin is wider, or the lower part of the face is wider than the forehead. And this is typical of Kapha to have tapering body parts. As you move farther away from the heart, body parts taper and get smaller. That's why we have the saying long and lean or short and stocky, right? So a person who's stocky often tends to be shorter, and a person who is a Vata person that's thin tends to be longer. And we speculate at Joyful Belly that this is because Kapha has thick, sluggish blood that's hard to circulate. And so as you move further from the heart, there's less nutrient circulating. Again, that's a speculation, but the explanation fits. All right. So forehead. What about forehead? For Vata people, lack of fat can make the skull seem like it's protruding. A Pitta forehead will likely have a large forehead with a receding hairline or widow's peak. So Arnold has great, thick hair here in this photo. He's Pitta Kapha. You could see that thickness of his hair, but you also see that the forehead is kind of protruding a little bit. And this one as well, the forehead seems to be protruding a bit. All right, Kapha have a solid, heavy brow, indicating strong bones. And that you see in the Arnold Schwarzenegger photo, that nice heavy brow with the thick eyelashes, showing that he's Pitta Kapha. And same here, you see a kind of heavier brow in this photo. And as I said, the bones of Kapha are larger, more rounded, and blunt. What about cheeks? This model looks a little underweight. Sometimes models can even have eating disorders. And if I saw a client with such sunken cheekbones like this, I would think parasites or eating disorder. And But also the modeling industry can be like this, that the cheeks are very sunken in this model, and that indicates deficiency and weight loss. In Pitta, you're going to see more average, more medium. The cheeks are not sunken or puffy, and the cheekbones will be a little higher and lifted here. All right, for Kapha, you have the round, swollen, or fleshy cheekbones. And Kapha people tend to hold on to water well, very well, and fat tissue. So it's really holding on to water and fat tissue that thickens the skin and fleshes out the face. Notice these cheeks here are not sunken at all, right, as compared to this one. Great. What about chin? Vata people have a long chin. The chin may look thin or frail or be off center. Remember that Vata tends towards irregularity. All right. Pitta people have a short and narrow chin. Pitta people generally have good muscle development. They're strong, even though they may not have the bulk of Kapha. They're generally strong, and their features are sharp. Look at the sharpness of her nose here, and then this sort of short, narrow, sharp chin. And again, I've talked about Arnold's chin, the square chin here, chiseled chin and jawline. That's Pitta Kapha. And Kapha will have the bones of the chin may be covered in flesh. You might see a double chin here. All right, good. Let's look at we've talked about, really, when we're talking about the shape of the face, we're talking about the bones, right? Which is sort of deep and internal to the person. Now we're kind of moving outward here, right? So we're going to look at the hair and skin on the face, and then we'll look at eyes, nose, and lips as well. So Vata hair is going to be thin, frizzy, and dry. Like this photo on the left, you see the hair is dry and splitting. There's lots of split ends. And on the right side, you see the hair is frizzy and thin. And Vata hair tends to be a little bit darker as well. Pitta tends to have fine hair. Pitta men may go bald earlier due to the high temperature of the head and oiliness of the scalp. And Pitta hair is generally a little lighter in color. Kapha hair is thick, rich, and luxurious, and wavy. And here Oprah just totally typifies that. And you see other Kapha features as well. I don't know if anyone in the chat, now that you're learning a little bit about this, what other Kapha features do you see in this photo? Interesting to hear from some of you based on what you've learned so far. And we'll continue on that as we go. Round cheekbones, yes. Yes. Good, full cheeks, yes, good. So there'll be other signs too that I'll point out, and maybe we can return to this photo, and you'll see she has other signs of Kapha as well. Facial hair. Vata is going to have thin or scanty facial hair. Pitta is going to have fair facial hair or orange facial hair. Pitta women may develop more facial hair as they age, as testosterone increases. And Kapha tends to have a thick, fast-growing, large beard. I think of my brother-in-law, my younger sister's husband. If he doesn't, it's like he has to shave twice a day. He's just got a very thick, growing beard. He probably dulls the razor just when he gets through half of his beard. Whereas my constitution being more Pitta Vata, I can shave every 3-4 days and I'm fine. Facial lines. It's natural to develop wrinkles on the face as you age. The wrinkles develop naturally as collagen is lost, and that's associated with dryness and therefore Vata dosha. All right. Well, the location of lines on the face has meaning and gives you insight into which doshas, organs, or tissues need support. All right, so Vata is gonna, because Vata is naturally dry, they're gonna have the most wrinkles naturally. And Kapha, because Kapha has more oiliness and excess, they generally have smooth, supple skin that looks young for their age. Let's just look here at Oprah. I mean, look how great her skin looks, right? She just has really nice, creamy skin, and that's what you get with Kapha. I mean, many of these models have good skin or their face is touched up, but here in this Vata photo, you see the dryness in the lips there, right? These lips are a little dry, and you also see the long face. Both of these faces are long. And see, her cheekbones are not that filled out. She's rouged her cheekbones to bring some more attention to them. But you see here, it's a little more sunken than you see in Oprah's photo. Okay? Good. Look at it again here. Nice, thick, supple skin. See the oiliness of his skin? You can see the sheen in the light here. And that is showing that this is a kapha constitution, but also with enough heat to push that oil to the surface. So also, this is a kapha pitta, whereas Arnold Schwarzenegger, I would say pitta primary with a lot of kapha. This is more kapha primary with some pitta. Right, just little nuances there. But all these models have great skin. That's probably why they're models, right? So in real life, you'll see that Vata people tend to have more blemishes than your Kapha people do. Okay, horizontal lines on the forehead indicate worry. That shouldn't be a surprise. If there's a vertical line next to the right eyebrow, that's a sign of liver stress. On the left eyebrow, spleen is stressed. Now that's according to to a little bit more the textbooks. In my clinical practice, what I notice is that if there's just deep lines there, that the person tends to be a pitta person who's a bit more analytical and maybe problem solving. That's a natural thing to wrinkle the eyes together when you're problem solving. And also this could be these wrinkles could develop here if a person doesn't have glasses or isn't using their glasses and then they're squinting or something like that to try to see. Then you'll also get those lines. A double chin tends to indicate underactive thyroid and sluggish metabolism, both kapha signs. Here you see the paleness of kapha, even the paleness in the lips. So this is kapha with cold quality. There's no pitta heat or very little pitta heat in this client. We see the thick beard, right? Look how much hair, facial hair here. But overall, it gives a very cool appearance. There's no redness in the cheeks, and that's due to a deficiency of heat in a pure kapha dosha. What about skin coloring and complexion? Okay, this is a Vata face. Looks almost like this person may have had a little bit, or almost that this person is more deficient than their constitution. Almost that they had a rough health event that withered them. Because I'm seeing a prominent forehead here and some thick hair, and also even just the nose looks a little more stout than a pure Vata nose. So maybe in younger years, this person was a little bit stockier and had a little bit more kapha in them, but now maybe due to some health event that was dramatic, there's lots of Vata signs. We're seeing ruggedness in the skin. The skin is sort of gray and lacking in luster, and we see some redness that almost looks more like inflammation than it does anything else. Vata skin tends towards moles and liver spots, which shows Vata in the liver, right? And that rugged, weathered look. Pitta has very sensitive skin. And you see here, what we're looking at is not just that the skin is red, but it appears to be reacting to something, right? And Pitta people generally are very reactive. You'll notice that her skin, even if you took this red part away, the skin appears to be glowing. And it has a brightness to the skin, a brightness to the lips there. Even the ears, you see that little bit of redness on the ears there. Pitta skin is generally bright and very lustrous. So it almost glowing. A glowing is a good word to describe Pitta skin. But their skin flushes easily and they may appear red or blush easily, and they're prone to inflammation, rashes, acne, allergens, reactions. So that's one type of Pitta here, which is where you're seeing the red color, but you also get yellow and green with Pitta. Here's a picture of a baby that has jaundice. A new baby liver is not really quite processing bilirubin very well. You put the baby in the sun, it helps process the jaundice, and then a few days later they're doing okay. But there you see a yellowish tinge to this baby's skin. Actually, this is even more yellow. All of my babies had a touch of jaundice. I have 5 children. They all had a touch of jaundice when they were born, and none of them looked this yellow. So this is pretty yellow. So hopefully this baby's okay. Then sometimes you see a kind of blackness under the eyes, or even a greenish blackness under the eyes, as you see in this bottom photo here, and that associate with liver and gallbladder. Maybe when it's black like this, I think of gallbladder stagnation, which is more Pitta Kapha in nature. And you see some other Pitta some Kapha signs in this face. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a Kapha face, though, but some signs, fullness of cheeks, things like that. All right, some Pitta people have a very fair skin, and that makes them intolerant of heat, and also they sunburn very easily. Pitta people are prone to freckling because of their delicateness of the skin. And let me see if I can go back. Look at this. See this classic sort of Pitta freckling. Even though her constitution is generally Vata, she has some Pitta as well. But here's just a wonderful example of the brightness of a Pitta face. I mean, look at the sparkle in the eyes and the glowing skin. This is Pitta Vata, so deficiency as well as heat. But you're again seeing that heart-shaped head where the forehead is much wider than the cheeks and jawline, with that sharp feature tapering. Look at the sharpness of the nose. We're not seeing her profile, but you see how there's like a sharp point in the nose here? That's very typical of Pitta. The reddish color to the hair. Whole photo. Okay, great. Kapha, again, the thickest and smoothest skin due to their oily nature. And it's noticeably whiter. And that's true only for white ethnicities. If a person's a white person, their kapha may make their skin whiter. But if they're a black person or non-white person of color, then their kapha skin might not be any lighter. And in fact, it could go in the other direction. But the reason in a white person why the kapha skin will be whiter is because kapha tends to be more cool, and so there's less blood flow in the surface of the skin, and that coolness causing vasoconstriction of capillary beds makes the face look more pale. And if there is stagnancy of fluids, there might be a slight pasty look to the face, and we're certainly seeing that here. Some kapha people, they want to take a shower like twice a day because they feel sticky. All right, let's look at some facial features. Oh, look, I'm checking the chat here, and let me look to see some of the questions on the side. I see. What do you mean by deficiency? Okay, deficiency generally, Carol, means that that a person is lacking something that should be there. So if a person has too little body fat, then they're deficient in body fat. If they're dehydrated, then they're deficient in water. If they have their electrolytes are too low, then they're deficient in electrolytes. If their skin is too dry, then it's deficient in oil. So it's generally a lack of something. And I see that where I see that someone has answered that. And let's take a look here. So deficiency here. I mean, the cheeks are sunken, so I'm seeing a deficiency of fat. The forehead looks a little dry, so I'm seeing a deficiency of oil. And the lips look very dry. So again, I'm seeing signs of chronic sort of dehydration and lack of fat. So generally, when I say Vata deficiency, I'm referring to dehydration because Vata tends to pee more than Kapha people. In fact, I have one of my children. She's more Vata, and when she pees, it's like she pees a huge amount. She's like this little tiny thing and pees a ton. Whereas my other son, John, he's a kind of stocky little ball of muscles, and he's built like a tank. And when he pees just a very tiny amount. So you'd think because he's bigger, he would pee more, but it's just the opposite. Because he pees less and holds on to fluids, he tends to have a larger body type. Whereas if you're peeing out all your fluids or pooping out your nutrients or releasing things all the time, you're going to be more deficient. So these Vata individuals tend to have less fat and they have trouble holding on to the nutrients that they've absorbed. They kind of have leaky kidneys. And that makes them deficient in fluids and fats. Okay? Does that give a little more insight into that? And I'm grateful for people answering some of the other questions in the chats. They have qualities from all the three doshas. All right, so I'll take a brief minute to mention that as well. Everybody has qualities from all three body types. Everybody. Because if you had no kapha, you'd have no substance, right? If you had no vata, you'd have no mobility. If you had no pitta, you'd have no heat at all. So you need heat to live, you need substance to live, and you need to move to live, right? So everybody has all three doshas. How do you figure out which one's primary? By looking at many, many features. So if you have 7 signs of vata in your body and 2 of pitta and 1 of kapha, you're probably a vata person. And then you also look at your disease history. If you've gotten sick 10 times and every time it was due to vata type causes, you're probably a vata person, right? But yeah, take the quizzes. Joyful Belly has an extensive quiz. You can take the brief dosha quiz, but I would take all the quizzes. It's about an hour long to take all the quizzes. You're going to learn great things about your body that you never even thought to check before. And so think of that as like a 1-hour learning experience to take your quizzes, and then will give you more accurate results by the end of the quiz. And then you can download your chart. Has a bunch of great information in your Ayurveda chart. So check that out on the Joyful Belly website, and you can create a diet from it. There's lots of cool features on there. So great. Let's get back to this presentation. Thank you for your questions, and we'll I will check back in here in just a bit. Okay, great. Let's move forward. Eyebrows. You guys are getting the picture now, right? Vata tends to be deficient. So they don't have all this extra material to create lots of hair. So Vata hair tends to be a little thin and sparse. I'm also noticing this purple color under the eyes, which I think of as as dehydration and blood stagnation, kind of cold, dry blood stagnation. Pitta eyebrows will be a little more average, and they'll be more blonde or reddish in color. And Kapha will have a wide, thick brow. Here's the unibrow, right? Now, not every Kapha person has a unibrow, but look at all the Kapha features of this person: the thick, wavy hair, the strong bones. Actually, hair and bones are kind of come from the same tissue in Ayurveda. So we expect in a person with thick hair to have good, strong bones, and this photo is certainly confirming that. We see thick eyelashes, thick eyebrows, thick, full, luxurious lips, and wide bones. All right, Kapha may have a very short brow also, and this when their metabolism is more low. This person has features of Pitta and Kapha. We see Kapha lips, Kapha fullness in the cheeks, but smaller eyes and light, fine Pitta hair. And the glowing nature of her skin looks a little more Pitta as well. If these shorter eyebrows can also indicate hyperglycemia or diabetes. All right, let's just review the parts of the eye and then we'll discuss them. The sclera is going to be a really important diagnostic tool in Ayurveda because it's white, so it's going to show impurities. The iris, or the color part of the eye, is going to show us the quality of the client's Agni or metabolism. Do they have a good, strong, bright metabolism, or is it dull? And then the pupil is the black center of the eye that allows the light to enter the eye by dilating, or to prevent light by constriction. And so some people have very dilated pupils, and that can show that there's some toxins present. The shape of the eye tells you your constitution. The movement of the eye tells the quality of your nervous system. The sclera tells you about impurities. If the sclera is yellow, some people have a kind of yellowish tint to their sclera, the white part of the eye. And that indicates bilirubin in blood, and other people have grayness in the eyes. Let's see, there you go. There's a picture of some grayness in the eyes, but sometimes it's a little bit more diffuse and not a gray spot like this, because spots like this could actually be cancerous too. So you want to look at that. This is a little faint, maybe for a melanoma or something like that. But this eye here has looks like there's some yellowing sort of in the very corner of the eye, and that's where you'll see the yellowing come. Or, everyone has a little bit more of this coloration sort of in the back of their eye. But when you see like the whole eye generally gray, that indicates the presence of toxins. All right, let me jump back here. Okay, good. I said all this already. Vata tends to have small eyes. Look at this photo of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln is a classic Vata Kapha. So when you see a Vata Kapha person, they're cold with big bones. They're deficient in fat, but heavy on the bones. And I think Abraham Lincoln, you'll noticing here the thick hair and heavy bones, but very tall man with small eyes. Classic Vata Kapha appearance. And Vata people are a little hyperactive, so their eyes may dart about. They're a little scattered. Oh, yeah. What makes a Vata eye small is a lack of fat tissue behind the eye. Now, in a Kapha person, there's going to be more fat behind the eye, and that's going to push the eye outward. Take a look here. See, jump forward. There we go. Look at that. Look at the eyes of a Kapha person here are going to be much bigger. You're going to see that doe-eyed look, because Kapha people tend to be very sweet and mild-mannered, at least externally, and so there's a softness to their eyes, much larger eyes than you see in a Vata person. Swelling just beneath the eye indicates adrenal stress or lack of sleep. I want to point out the difference between these two photos in the eyes. You see, both of them have a swelling beneath the eyes, but of a very different nature. The baggy eyes on the right is a sign of fluid stagnation and buildup. Notice in these eyes too, there's a bit of redness, right? So we're seeing some inflammation generally. The sclera is a little bit red, and that's why the sclera is so important. It kind of reveals what's going on in the blood. Now, in this client, the sclera looks like a nice white color, but we're seeing adrenal stress and lack of sleep, and a little bit of blood stagnation causing darkness beneath the eyes. There you go again. Purple beneath the eye is a sign of dryness with blood stagnation that's related to the kidney. Okay. Vata iris. You know, if you look at babies, the coloring in their eye is usually kind of very bright and deep. So if they have brown eyes, it'll be dark brown eyes. If they have blue eyes, it'll be a sort of very sparkly, deep blue. But then as you get older, the coloring in the eye tends to get a little more dull. And that is a Vata sign. As you age, you become more Vata. Dark blue eyes is a sign of coldness in the constitution. Vata eyes may have irregularity, like a drooping eye. Pitta eyes are more sharp. Look at this woman's eyes. She's gazing right at you with a penetrating gaze. She's a sharp Pitta person. There's yellow in the sclera. I said before that sometimes the sclera will look a little yellow. This is jaundice. I mean, this is very yellow. This is like cirrhotic liver from years of alcohol drinking, something like that. If you see the sclera's bloodshot, it could be allergies or other inflammatory conditions. There you go. This is an example of a sparkling, glowing, bright Pitta eye. You see some variation in the color, but in general, very charming eye, and this indicates good Agni. Oh, Agni, your good metabolism. Agni is the Ayurveda's word for metabolism and your sort of inner fire. Metabolism is an inner fire. Pitta eyes will be a more light blue or green, whereas Kapha blue eyes will be a little bit more darker blue, or will not have this greenness to them. Now, you see the coloring in this eye is just very dark. There's no dullness to the coloring of her eyes here. These eyebrows look sculpted. So this is what you have to watch out for, right? Because you might look at these eyebrows and think, oh, very thin, sparse eyebrows. I'm not buying it. I think that she sculpted her eyebrows. Large, oval-shaped eyes is a Kapha eye. Okay, notice her eyes are not as piercing and penetrating, but there's some affection in them. Okay, these eyes are piercing and penetrating. Thick, oily, long lashes is Kapha. And Kapha tends to have a nice, bright, white sclera. Look how nice and bright the sclera is. Kapha people tend to wake up with a little bit of sleep in their eye. And why would a Kapha person get that sleep in their eye? You know, that little sort of crusty thing on the inner corner of your eye when you wake up in the morning. I used to get that as a kid, but because kids are more Kapha. But as I've grown up, I don't get it very often unless I have a rich meal before bed, because it's the richness in the blood that creates that sort of mucousy fluids that end up causing that sleep to build up in the eye. Great, and here you see two Kapha individuals, Kapha blue eyes and dark brown eyes. Again, two very Kapha individuals. Look at this wavy hair. She's more more Kapha Pitta Kapha probably, and she is just more pure Kapha. Vata ears will be cool. Notice this when you have dinner tonight, if you haven't eaten it already, whether your ears get warm after your meal. Pitta ears get warm to the touch, especially after a meal. But Vata people have more cool ears, and their ears may look more pale, whereas a Pitta ear will have more color in it, and they may be more sensitive to the sun. The top of the ear is an area where skin cancer commonly develops, so keep an eye on that. My father-in-law had that. Kapha tends to have large, long earlobes, and puffy earlobes with a crease or excess hair in the ears can indicate high cholesterol, according to Ayurveda. Longer earlobes are a sign of intelligence, according to Chinese medicine. And I'll also note that ears get longer as a person ages. So that cultural association in Chinese medicine may be just simply a sign of the wisdom of older age. Your nose is made of cartilage, and that grows throughout your life. So nose gets bigger and bigger your entire life. Vata may have a thin bridge on their nose with less flesh on the nose. Right, let's look at this photo here. You see that the photo on the right, that the bridge on the nose is a little bit thicker. The photo on the left has somewhat of a thin bridge there. Let's see, there's a thicker bridge to the nose. Let's see what Abe's nose looks like. Abe has the good bone, so he's got a thick bridge too. Let's see if we pull up a Vata person here. More thinner in Pitta. Don't have any good Vata pictures. Let's see if we go back far enough to some of these Vata. There we go. Let's see her nose. Yeah, she's got a small, dainty nose. The bridge is not that thin. But okay, let's see. Let's jump back to where we were. Okay, so Vata tends to have a more thinner bridge, less flesh on the nose, a thinner nose, and they may have a deviated septum or some irregularity. Pitta will have a more red tip, or they might see some rosacea on the nose. You saw that picture with the person who had hives a little earlier. And Kapha is going to have a broad septum, indicating strong Kapha bones. And the skin on their nose will be thicker and moist looking. Also note that a large nose can indicate endocrine disorders or hypothyroidism. Lips. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, that when you're looking at the white part of the eye, you are looking, you can see impurities in the blood. Same thing with the teeth, by the way. Anything that's white in the body helps you to be able to see impurities in the blood. The lips are red, and you look at the red parts of the body to see the quality of the blood, the heat in the blood. So if a person's anemic, like the person on the right, their lips are going to be very pale. But if they have a kind of Pitta in the Rakta Dhatu, or Pitta in the blood, Pitta heat in the blood, you're going to see this photo on the left here where the lips are a little more bright red. And you even see some inflammation almost around these lips. Lips can also reveal emotions, right? Like the expression, read my lips. Vata lips can become dry and pale, especially as a person ages. Their lips can become more dry and more pale. And that's the cold, dry qualities of old age. Pitta lips are medium-sized lips, and they may be a little more tense. Person may be carrying tension in their jaw. And Kapha lips are broad and full. Again, look at all the Kapha signs here. Thick muscles in the neck, a wide jaw, fullness in the cheeks, broad nose, thick lips, thick skin in the eyebrows, all kapha signs. Kapha is also more relaxed. All right, great. So we've gone over lips, nose, ears, and all the features on the face. So I want to thank you all for your interest in learning general face assessment according to Ayurveda. For those of you on the call who are attending to claim that $750 discount to our courses, you can do that by going to the Joyful Belly website and clicking on the wellness courses. And hold on one second, let me sign out so you can see what you see here. You click on wellness courses and go to the fundamentals of Ayurvedic medicine or the mastering Ayurveda digestion and nutrition, and you can register here. You'll see our payment plans. So check that out if you're interested in our courses. I'll open up the lines in just a second for question and answer. But I want to say that people say that that disease is contagious, but I also want to say that health is contagious. When you do something to heal yourself, or when you take the time to learn about the body and learn about just even to understand your body, you take a step towards health, and that's very inspiring for everyone in your community. And it's inspiring for you. That's our mission at Joyful Belly. Is to bring Ayurveda, bring an Ayurveda to a modern audience, and make it accessible to people all around the world, and especially in the United States, where I'm from, in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. So thank you everybody for taking that time to learn about your body. And also for choosing us, for coming to Joyful Belly and learning from us. I really, it's a privilege to be able to teach you. So thank you all and have a wonderful evening. Stay on the line if you have some questions, and feel free to ask me questions. I'm going to click to mute, but allow participants to unmute themselves. So if you have a question, you can ask. And thank you for the compliments on the website. I see Esme is saying the website has some fantastic resources. It is a huge website with lots of information on it. So enjoy learning, check it out, and learn and teach, right? Tell people what you discover and share it with the people you love. I will send out a recording tomorrow for this presentation, so that way you can share it with your friends if you liked it.
I have a question.
Great.
So I am interested in the certification, the 2-year Ayurveda, and my bachelor's degree is natural health. This last year I did meditation certification with the Chopra Center. So I'm looking to add on Ayurveda to have more holistic or full picture for having clients, whole body, mind wellness. So I'm looking at the certification with you guys, and then also Maharishi Institute. So I don't know if you're familiar with their program or how that compares. You're both a 2-year online program, whereas theirs has in person twice a year. You go there for a week for the pulse diagnosis and stuff like that. So I was curious about what sort of clinical stuff you would do with the online.
Yeah, great. So Maharishi will take a more religious view than our school. Our school will take a more of a kind of modern medical approach. So you won't find like mystical things in our course as much as just like straight practical understanding of Ayurveda and how to apply things. I think sometimes people want a more mystical thing, and other people want to like they want to understand it, and they want it to be less mystical. So I think that, and if you were asking about the difference between the two schools, is more just in the approach
Okay.
that we will take more. We will give you a very in-depth, very applicable, professional certification that you can use to build a career in health and wellness. That's
Okay.
what our approach is, a little bit more towards that goal rather than say a spiritual developmental course, which um, so yeah, so you'll see some schools will take that approach versus another approach, and that just depends on what the individual student wants. For our clinical program is extensive. You will be meeting with clients in person in the program, but your teachers will be advising you online. And from my point of view, online education brings the material up much closer. When I took an in-person Ayurveda course, sitting in the fourth row, my teacher was doing tongue analysis, and he was 15 feet in front of the class, and I was 4 rows back. And from where I was sitting, I could tell the client had a tongue, but I could not see
Right.
the client's tongue. Whereas in an online program like ours, we will ask you to take a picture of the tongue, and we will show you pictures of tongues as examples, and you will see the tongue blown up on the screen. It will be bigger than if you stuck your eyeball in the client's,
Right.
near the client's tongue. And
Yeah.
so I think that use of multimedia improves the quality of the information that we can deliver, and makes it, appear 2 feet in front of you instead of 25 feet in front of you. That's just our take on education. My background, my degree is in mathematics and computer science from Harvard University. As an academic myself, I just think good academics are really important, and I think online and multimedia tools just bring it up much closer. So I'm a fan of the online model over flying somewhere at big expense to kind of not really get any closer to the client. But again, there are people who will strongly disagree in the Ayurveda profession around that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
just our school's take on it.
Okay. And then last question about, you mentioned like what the vision is for after you have a certification like that. How can you practice with clients with the 2 year, like a
Yeah.
health?
Yeah, great question. Sorry, what do you mean? How can you practice? Tell me more about that. I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Well, so obviously it depends on which state. Like I'm in Washington State, so we have pretty strict rules on Ayurvedic practitioners because we have Vastir here. But just you were talking about what you had in mind for a vision of how you can practice. So with the Ayurvedic 2 year certification, could you practice as
So it's legal to practice Ayurveda in all 50 states of the United States. There is no license. There's no license to given by the government for Ayurveda, which means it's not regulated. I mean, it's unregulated. So anyone can practice Ayurveda legally in all 50 states. And I'm saying this as the president of the National Association of Ayurveda Schools and Colleges. Which and not just as Joyful Belly. However, you can't encroach on the license of another profession, right? So in the ancient Ayurvedic text, they describe surgery, but surgery is licensed, and you have to be a medical doctor in order to do surgery. And so you're not allowed to do surgery as an Ayurveda person because that is covered under someone else's license. And massage therapists are allowed to touch their clients. If you don't have a license to touch, you may not be able to touch your client. So those things will be covered by other licenses. Generally, Ayurveda practitioners are seen as educators in the eyes of the law and as health coaches. So you're allowed to educate your client about Ayurveda, and you can say things like, the ancient Ayurvedic texts say that for a Vata imbalance in the hip joints, this is an herb for that. And what I will generally tell my clients is, you should check out this herb and see if that would work well for you, because you have a looks like a Vata problem in your hip joint, right? So I will educate them about what Ayurveda will say, but I never tell my clients, take this herb and call me in the morning because this herb is going to fix your cancer or something like
Right.
that. That is what Western medical doctors do, is they prescribe something for a condition. What I do is I educate my clients about a health and wellness plan consistent with Ayurveda, and then they decide whether or not that's going to be something that they choose for themselves. And they might even ask their doctor whether their doctor agrees or not. That's up to the client.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm happy to answer any questions like that, because I know that those are big questions that people have. And also in terms of vision, just helping people understand and connect the dots from learning Ayurveda to having a thriving clinical practice, right? Because that's not always immediately obvious to the loved ones in your life that may be contributing or funding your education, right? Typically, we'll see students who see and have a vision themselves on how to create their clinic, but how do they communicate that to a spouse or someone else who has a vested interest in your time, or who might be participating in a financial decision or things like that? And so I help students in that area too. I see that Sandra's
Thank
asking.
you. Hey, this is Danielle. I just wanted to say thank you very much, because we also have Best here. I'm down in Southern California.
Yeah.
I'm an LVN here in California, and I was wondering how to set up my practice and what it would look like. And you saying that you're not prescribing, you're just educating your clients about Ayurvedic medicine. That was like a very good way for me to frame it. Like, okay, I'm not practicing medicine, so
Exactly.
yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for the,
I'm glad that was helpful.
yeah, for sure.
Great. So Sandra's asking here, what about if she doesn't have a stable internet connection? And, are there penalties, or what about mandatory attendance and flexibility? Okay. So, we do have 3 live classes a week. That's webinar. You attend them online. And not every student can attend those classes, maybe because you work during that time, maybe because you're in a different time zone. We stagger our classes so that people from all time zones have a class that is accessible to them, but still you might not be able to attend all 3. And in that case, we post the recording, Sandra, and then you can download the recording and watch it at your leisure. And that way you can register your attendance that way. And also, if you have a vacation, or you're going, you already have a family vacation plan next year, or something big going on at work, you just contact student support for an extension. And as long as it's not last minute, like if someone says, oh, I couldn't get my homework done last night, can you give me an extension? That's generally more like procrastination. But if you have a legitimate reason, or you contact us really for any reason in advance, then we will then our student support will give you an extension, and that way you don't have to change your plans to take this course. Any other questions? All right. Well, it's been very exciting to be here with all of you, and I saw so many thank yous go in the chat. So I want to just say you're welcome. I mean, it's really great to be able to reach out to people all over the world and help them understand a bit more of Ayurveda. Oh, good. And I see a few more questions popping up. Is there a sample to view of homework assignments, etc.? Maria, I don't have a sample to show you, but generally we'll ask you one, just a simple recall to see what you've learned, and then we'll ask you some assessment questions so you get to practice and apply what you've learned. And then we have we employ active learning styles, Maria, to improve student retention and learning. So it's not just about what have you remembered from the presentation, but also active application using active learning principles to so that our pedagogy is strong and helps you get great skills, not just know information. Dorena is asking about post-diagnosis via an online course. How do you do it? Dorena, the same way as when you have an in-person course. I can't feel what my teacher feels in a person's pulse, right? You can't. Pulse is always subjective. When you touch a client, you can talk about it back and forth a little bit, but if if you have a teacher teaching you in class, unless it's a one-on-one session, which personal mentoring for Pulse is really the best way to learn Pulse, but you don't get that in an in-person course anyway, either. So when I had an in-person course, our teacher would describe different pulses to us, and then we just tried each other's pulses, and we tried to feel those things. And that's what we did. We learned about the different techniques, and we grew in skills, and so in our course, we'll have an assignment where you take your own pulse every day for like 3 months. And then you'll take a pulse of a friend as well. And then you'll compare the two, and you will slowly understand the pulse through those means. And that's exactly what you do in an in-person course. So there's just really no difference there. Personal mentoring, however, is a difference. So if you have, once you graduate from this course, I would highly recommend working in a clinic with somebody and letting them go back and forth teaching you about pulse on a personal one-to-one basis. I also want to say that pulse diagnosis is not the primary diagnosis in Ayurveda. Everyone makes a big hullabaloo about it because it seems very exciting and very glamorous. But for most practitioners, I would say probably even greater than 50% of practitioners, pulse is not their primary method of diagnosis. So I think prospective students are more interested in that than clinicians. Yeah, pulse diagnosis is used a lot more in traditional Chinese medicine. And Doreen, I would say that I like pulse diagnosis. I mean, I think it's wonderful. I put a lot of focus on tongue diagnosis, which is also not a typical one for Ayurveda. Ayurveda doesn't use tongue diagnosis as a primary one. But since I specialize in digestive tract disorders, I find the tongue extremely useful for assessment. And so I've done extensive studies in that area. And tongue diagnosis, the best way to learn that is online. I mean, really, you blow the tongue up on the screen, and it's better than you can see it in person. Great. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Sometimes people say things like, they turn their video on and they're like, what dosha am I? Or something. And I'm always happy to answer a few questions like that too.
Actually, since you mentioned doshas, I always take the test. I know what mine are, and my husband's primarily are, but my sons are 10. I have two twin boys, and then they're almost 11, and then 6. And I find all the quizzes on the Chopra Center, and then I can't remember if I've gone to your website and done that too, but I find them to be really hard to do for children. They don't seem very applicable with like skin type and weight and all of that sort of thing. So I don't know if there's a better way for assessing children than the standard.
Yeah, well, I think that that children are they have less health history, and it is a little bit harder. So like I'm always trying to figure out my kids, and so that's just it's just a little harder. And you know, you can take those online quizzes, even the Joyful Belly quiz, and it gives you some really good insight. But ultimately, you're going to, you know, if you're not trained, you're going to really want to figure that out, Tara, from a trained Ayurveda practitioner. Yeah, I think that's
okay.
where you're going to really get to learn a little bit deeper about it, because there's nuances, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you see something being expressed, but the root is somewhere else, and it just can be a little
Yeah.
nuanced.
Yeah, totally. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for today? Yes, Maria. Okay, I see a few questions now popped up. Are there any correlations between blood type and body type? I haven't done an extensive study of that, but it's a great question. Lori G asks, do we need to do an internship in order to be able to practice? We will ask you first first we'll give you lots of self-assessment questions. Then you'll do kind of mini consultations with students in the program. Then you're going to do full-on consultations with students in the program. And then, Lori, you'll start seeing outside clients yourself. And that's so you don't need to do an internship after you graduate. Once you graduate, you have your certification. But in order to graduate, we'll have you meet with clients. And there'll be 25 sessions that you meet with outside clients. Total clinical encounters in the program is something like 108 in the program, or 108 assessments. Not all of them would be considered clinical encounters properly. 95 clinical encounters, something like that. So we'll be doing consultations with students. The teacher will do it with students, so you'll get to see. And you'll be doing it yourself with other students, and then with outside clients. So by the time you're done, you will have seen a little over 95 examples of consultations. And then there's another like 13 other assessments that you'll do. Is the certification being recognized in Europe? It depends. So the certification isn't recognized anywhere, not even the United States, because Ayurveda is unregulated in the United States. So there is no recognition of Ayurveda in the United States anywhere for anyone. In India, the Ayurveda is licensed, and there may be other countries that have other regulations and restrictions, and that is required to check in your local country. Yeah, but if Ayurveda is not licensed there, then you can educate. Generally, you'll be able to educate, but not prescribe. Yes, if you took the Dosha quiz 4 years ago, yeah, you could take them all again, Susan. Yeah, take them all over, refresh it. Oh, now we get back to Maria's question. Can someone start as a Pitta Kapha and then change to a Kapha Pitta with age? Maria, your imbalances can change. And over a long period of time, your constitution can change slightly. Like as you age, you become more Vata in constitution. But generally, it's your imbalances that change, not your constitution. And the imbalances is what's important. So I don't think that much about my constitution. When a client comes into my office, I can pretty much tell their constitution by the time they sit down in the chair. But I'm focusing on their imbalances. Is inability to gain weight a Vata condition? Yes. Generally it is. Now, it doesn't mean Vata is the ultimate root cause, but inability to gain weight is generally Vata. Students are eligible for certification through AADP as a health coach after passing their board level exam. Yes. No, you don't need to go to AADP at all, though, Sandra. That's just if you want AADP to recognize you as a health coach. Health coaches are an unlicensed field also. So you can just say you're a health coach and it's unregulated. So you don't need AADP. You don't need anything. You know, it would be, I think, unethical of you to practice Ayurveda without getting a good education in it. But it's an unregulated field, so you can practice. You don't need to take any exam at all. That's just if you want to. Some people like to do that. In my clinic, I focus on you know, good results and doing good work for my clients, and that I think is the best way to go. Any other questions I can help you with? Great. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Feel free to reach out. Here's my my email and my cell phone. Text me if you have a question, right? If you're planning on taking advantage of that $750 discount in the next 3 days, and you have a question, I know, again, it's a big decision. Don't hesitate. Text me. I will answer your question. Email me your question if you want. But talking's always the best, because then we can, you know, we can just go back and forth and make sure that you're satisfied and know what it is that you need to know. Well, have a wonderful night, everyone. And yeah, and someone's saying privately, can you buy a silent keyboard? And I do have a silent keyboard, but I am not at home right now. I am out of town, and so this is all I've got today. But in the future, I hope to have less clicking. And sorry if that was annoying to folks, but I hope you got some good information anyway, and look forward to spending more time together.